Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Peter Canavese from Groucho Reviews and the San Francisco Film Critics Circle, and I'm about to tell you a little bit about our special guest this evening, who you're about to meet. He broke out as Colonel Tavington in The Patriot before winning iconic roles such as Mr. Darling and Captain Hook in 2003's Peter Pan, and of course, Lucius Malfoy in that little film series known as Harry Potter. He's also a star of the stage, having appeared in the London premiere of Angels in America and a revival of Harold Pinter's The Dumbwaiter, among other stints. And he's made his mark on television, starring in Awake, The OA, and Star Trek Discovery. And I haven't even mentioned The End of the Affair, Black Hawk Down, A Cure for Wellness and Fury. This guy's got a deep resume. Of course, tonight, he's your Field Marshal Zhukov. Please give a warm San Francisco welcome to Jason Isaacs.
Hi, hi, hi. I've only been in that many things because I'm old. That's why. I've been doing it for a long time. If you don't be worried about upsetting me if you've got babysitters or parking or anything, or you're hungry or you need to go to the toilet, just walk out. That's all fine. People have come back for a second night running. Hi. You're a sucker for punishment. Hi. Thank you for staying, whoever's staying.
Now, you earned an honor recently that few internationally acclaimed actors can claim, which is you were banned by the Kremlin.
Well, yes, there's a story. Therein lies the story. Actually, it wasn't banned in Russia. It was given a license, and Armandos flew over there and did all the press screenings, and it got standing ovations from the journalists, which is unheard of in Russia. And it was due to open, and the day before it was due to open, Zhukov's daughter wrote a letter to the Kremlin and said that it was a gross insult to the memory of her father. She hadn't seen the film, of course. I think he comes out as a bit of a hero myself, but and that some lowly culture minister, much like the people in the film, suddenly shit himself at the notion that Putin might find out that he allowed this film to go ahead because Putin's a big fan of Stalin for some odd reason. And the culture minister, who I assume he did this humorously, put out a statement saying he wasn't going to, he was revoking the license because it was a blatant attempt by the West to interfere in their election coming up.
Who would do such a thing, interfere in their election?
And so it was banned, but there was a cinema, a very cool art cinema, much like this one, that assumed it was a joke because nobody bans films, even in Russia. And so they went ahead and showed it, and there was a big police raid, and they shut the thing down. And what they did inadvertently was make us the most successful illegally streamed film in Russia. Everybody's seen it now, and they illegally stream films all the time. I apologize to the people who were here last night for repeating myself, but anyway, there is a genius tweet, if you can still find it, of some guy tweeted out a photograph of him in Red Square underneath Putin's window, watching it on a laptop. So,
now, I heard that you had a little discussion with former Prime Minister David Cameron about the film, that he had a pretty good one-liner about it.
Well, this is true. Well, because a lot of people assume Armando being one of the foremost political satirists of our time, you know, I presume you know he wrote and directed Veep and another British series called The Thick of It before that. So
and In the Loop.
And In the Loop, of course. So people assume this was a comment on Trump. It was him trying to say something about the Trump administration. He's actually so thrilled that he's not making Veep anymore because there's nothing left to parody, frankly. But we made it in June 2016. We made it before Trump was even a candidate. And Brexit had just happened, the Brexit vote, and David Cameron had just had to resign. And the day after he resigned, poor fucker, he had this appointment where he had to go to France for the commemoration of the Battle of the Somme, the biggest battle of the First World War, and sit with all of the other elected and crowned heads of Europe and all the heads of the armed forces. And so he made a beeline to talk to me, because I'm sure he was too embarrassed to talk to the other people. And he said, what are you doing at the moment? And I said, well, I'm doing a film about the power vacuum after Stalin died and how everyone was stabbing each other in the back. And he said, it sounds like Downing Street, except they're stabbing each other in the face there. So this situation, although there are many things, God knows, that are applicable to the current cult of personality, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm most reminded of that press conference that Trump held right at the beginning, where every single member of his cabinet had to pledge allegiance, loyalty, love, in that kind of medieval way, and just thank God that they were born in the era of this man-God. But Armando says that the bit that reminds him most of Trump is when everybody goes, voted you unanimously, because that seems to be the nature of the Trump cabinet.
Since you brought up Trump, I've been researching you and reading lots of interviews with you, and And you talk a lot about when you're offered a role that other people might approach as a straightforward villain role, that you are looking for how to humanize that role, how to make the motivations believable for you so that you can approach it. But how would you approach playing Trump?
Well, the thing is that everybody thinks they're doing the right thing in life. Even the most monstrous people. Stalin thought he was doing the right thing, but Hitler obviously thought he was doing the right thing. And the characters I've played, Lucius Malfoy is just a racist. He's just a racist who'd like to make Hogwarts great again. You know, he's looking. It's true. He's looking back. He's thinking there was a time when people like me ran the world, and now these mudbloods are coming in. And Trump thinks he's doing the right thing. I think Trump has some kind of pathological disorder. He doesn't even know that he's lying instinctively every single time he opens his mouth. But he's convinced that he sees the right way and he sees the real order of things. Much like the character, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched Star Trek, my character comes from a different world, and that world is a Darwinian world where you're foolish if you think that this social experiment of treating everyone equally will ever work. In time, it will shake itself out, and they just see the world a different way. They're not evil. They just have a different perspective. So,
and in grand Star Trek allegorical tradition, he says he wants to make the universe great again. Right?
Well, that was my line. I stuck that in. I sneaked that in past the people at CBS. I'm not sure they noticed until there was a fuss about me making the empire great again. Yeah.
One of the genius things about the Death of Stalin is that despite the seeming absurdity of it, it's all sourced in history. It really is, to a great extent, true. Can you tell us about the real Zhukov? From what I read, you actually had to remove some of the medals in order to be able to make the costume work.
Let me start on the slightly more macro thing, because now that you've seen it, one of the tricky things about doing publicity is you don't want to spoil it for people, but now that you've seen it, although a lot of people seem to be videoing this, don't post this video anywhere. Are you videoing? Well, don't video this. I won't say anything indiscreet. Could you not a video? Could you switch that off? I don't want to get sued. Not Michael Cohen coming after me. Thank you very much for not doing that. But so one of the things you can tell audiences who've already seen it, he's still pointing the camera at me in a strange fashion. I'm wondering what's going on. And what is that camera behind there? I'm being videoed in like 20,000 ways. Oh, that's yours. That's fine. But you know, that everything that you see in here, all of the most insane, surreal incidents actually took place. Armando, dived heavily into research. It was based on a French graphic novel which had already had a ton of research. So things that seemed completely inconceivable, like the orchestra scene at the beginning, not only did they happened worse. They had 3 conductors because the middle one was drunk and they couldn't use him. And Armando thought, if I put 3 in, no one's going to believe it. But Vasily really did make the ice hockey team take off in a storm, and they all crashed and died. Oh, hi. There you are. I see. Hi. And so he got a bunch of ringers in, and he pretended they were the ice hockey team. Everybody noticed after a while because they were losing like 40-0 every time. But Stalin lay in a puddle of his own piss for a day and a half when they couldn't decide what to do about whether to call a doctor or not. And Beria really did put tomatoes in people's pockets. They really did watch cowboy films. I mean, so much of that is true. There was a button under the buzzer and everything. When it came to Zhukov, other people dived very heavily into research. I just glanced at Wikipedia for about 2 minutes, and there was this fantastic photograph of a man wearing an insane comedy amount of medals, puffing this giant chest out and looking like he won the Second World War by himself. And I thought that told me everything I needed to know about, that he was what Tom Wolfe called a big swinging dick in the Kremlin. And then I read that he could say anything he wanted to Stalin, because Stalin he wasn't scared of him exactly, but he respected him. And he didn't want to piss off the Red Army. So I went for the costume fitting, and we put this jacket on, and actually couldn't fit 2/3 of the medals. That Zhukov was wearing them like down his leg and up his arse and everywhere. So I got them to stuff the jacket with kind of padding until it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and looked full Anna Nicole Smith time. I said Pamela Anderson last night, but I changed it for you. And then my arms looked like noodles, so we stuffed the arms as well. And eventually I had this kind of Mr. Incredible upper body that I would strap on, and we could fit most of the medals on. And then I felt like a different person when I walked in. Although that slow motion entry was just from Armando going, "Oh, that's so fucking cool, all the medals. Let's shoot that in slow-mo." So.
We will be opening it up to questions momentarily, so be thinking about what you'd like to ask Mr. Isaacs.
Mr. Isaacs, that's if you're arresting me or I owe you money. Sorry.
Well, we have a surprise for you.
Okay, good.
One of the things that I think you're often called upon to do as an actor is convey intimidation. And we see that in this film.
So weird.
Well, yes, you're not intimidating in real
no.
life. You're quite charming in
Scared
real
of my
life.
children, my dog, everybody.
But can you tell us some of the tricks of the trade to convey intimidation on screen?
Well, there's an old theatrical saying, and I feel like I'm in behind the actor's studio, whatever it's called now. But you can't play the king. You can't play status. Other people give you status. So you can act. I remember, well, this is a total digression here. I was in a film called Soldier years ago. Not one eyebrow, good. Not a high watermark in science fiction filmmaking, but anyway, I was cast as the bad guy. The director was a friend of mine. We'd just done Event Horizon, and I went to the read-through, and I was living in the house with the director, and he said, I got back after the read-through, he said, Jerry, what's his name? Jerry Weintraub. Jerry Weintraub wants to fire you. And I went, what? He goes, he wants to replace you. And my stomach dropped out. I was terrified. He goes, he said, you were weak. He said that Gary Busey just pissed all over you at the reading. And I'm meant to be the head of the army or whatever it is, and other people are meant to be scared of me. And I said, well, that's because he didn't play scared of me. And he goes, you've got to go in and re-audition for your part tomorrow morning. I said, what do you mean re-audition? He goes, he'll send you home. He won't pay you. I'm telling you, I don't have the status to overrule him. And I got to say, you didn't seem very scary at the thing. So I said, well, let me tell Jerry what I think was going wrong with the reading. He said, if you start talking, I'm telling you, you'll be on a plane before you finish a sentence. So I went in the morning to Jerry Weintraub's office. He had Newt Gingrich outside waiting to come in.
To play the role?
Yeah. And he sat there and he had a big cigar in this little office. Yeah, Jerry? And he said, Jason, I've made 75 movies. I put 30 Broadway plays on. And I've won 5 actors' Oscars. And I know when you got to have a villain, people that got to shit themselves when you come on the screen. I said, sorry, can I interrupt for a second, Jerry? And Paul, my friend, the director, was going like that. And I said, you're one of the scariest people I've ever met in my life. What? I said, you're a very intimidating person. And he went, and your point is? And I said, I've never heard you raise your voice. Everybody here is utterly terrified of you. They all think you can flick, with a twitch of your eyebrow, you can have the entire family buried under the freeway. I don't know if you can or can't. I'm not asking, but I'm just saying that's because everybody's scared of you. If you had to shout, you'd seem pathetic. And he went, your friend's a very smart guy, Paul. And I stayed in the job. The film still sucks, but the point is, they all played my status. I didn't have to do very much. I mean, God knows, all the characters in it, like they were in real life, are terrified. The comedy is comedy of terror and comedy of fear and anxiety, and I'm the only character who's not scared.
If you have to raise your voice or work hard, then you lose your status.
Yeah, and so I came in faking it. I just. What was odd is, it was my first day, they'd all had rehearsals together, I hadn't. And I walked in, and I'm surrounded by people I just wanted to dissolve into a puddle of fangirl juice. Everybody there is someone I was so overawed by and thrilled by. And within a split second, I have to be literally grabbing them by the balls and spitting in their face and stuff. But it's a job. Someone's got to do it.
All right. Questions?
Hi. I'm very worried about you going home in this freezing cold with such a short skirt on.
It's all right. I'm from Russia.
The city is cold. Oh, that's why you don't care, because you're from Russia. Of course.
Oh, yeah, actually from Siberia. But
Okay.
Not a political question at all. I just was curious to know whether you were filmed some of it in Russia. We were discussing it
Right.
a little bit quietly during the film.
Did you think we filmed in Russia?
Yeah, it kind of looked like it.
Awesome! I will tell the director, he'll be thrilled. No, we filmed in dusty church halls in London and car parks. It's all green screen. They went to the Ukraine to do some of the exteriors where they were rounding up people, but none of the main actors ever went anywhere further than the central London. And it's all, when you see visual effects of monsters, it's visual effects, but that's just, I think they went for a day without us and snatched some footage until men in trench coats asked them what they were doing.
Now,
There is a question, sorry, there's a question we often get asked about why didn't we do Russian accents? And the answer is, if we were speaking English with a Russian accent, we'd be speaking our second language. And you're meant to watch people who are speaking their first language. It would be very weird if we had foreign accents. So consequently, he let everyone do whatever accent they wanted. And I don't know if there's any English people here, but I knew that I was right. So I knew I was playing someone very blunt, very rude, and very direct. And that's what Yorkshiremen are known for. So I said, can I play it Yorkshire? And Amanda went, I don't see why not. Jeffrey's doing it Brooklyn, and Steve's, no, Jeffrey's doing it Californian, quite a feat. And Steve's doing it Brooklyn, so why not? So that's where my accent came from.
I remember all those farmers intimidating Peter Davison on All Creatures
Exactly
Great and
right.
Small. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask how you thought your costume compared to other. You've had a few military roles, so.
I have.
Yeah.
Well,
And a second quick question is, you don't appear till about like an hour into the film.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how you approached the script that way. Like, did you know to like flip to the middle and start with you, or did you read?
do
it
I bother
through?
reading other
Yeah.
people's lines?
Yeah.
I just go blah 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 me, blah 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 me. No, I needed to know what the story was and who the people were and who the characters were and who I was dealing with. Well, I have to say, once I skip through something once and read it, I then only read my bits. And so when I watch the film, it's a joy. I'm here shooting something on a Netflix series called The OA. And when I was offered the OA, thank you for that single clap. Love it. Oh, no, it's a very mild smattering. It's exactly what actors live for. But when I read the OA, I was offered the job overnight. I replaced somebody, and I had to read all 8 scripts in one go, and then suddenly Skype the director. And then I got on a plane, I went and I started shooting. So I just quickly read through it all, and then I only read my bits when I was filming. So when I watched the show back, I'd entirely forgotten all the other stuff, and I was blown away by it, which is a nice way to enjoy something. But on the costume front, I have played lots of soldiers, and it's lovely to play a big man with a big padded thing, because you can have, I don't know how many people have been on a film set, but they force feed you all day like a foie gras goose. They just try and get you as fat as possible, and it's very difficult to resist. In Star Trek, I wore a costume that was like a gastric band, and if you had a tomato at lunchtime, you looked pregnant. So this, Black Hawk Down, we had to wear Kevlar, and then they realized within a day or two the actors were going, do you know, my back really hurts, and so we had foam instead of real Kevlar after day 2. So I love this one. I love this one because, look, I'm in a strange, childish profession in which I play make-believe all the time. So anytime I can put something on, whether it's a voice or something facial or clothes, and I can look in the mirror and feel like somebody else, it allows my imagination to come through, and I really felt like somebody else wearing this stuff.
There are a lot of special tricks to working on Star Trek that I think you learned a few from Jonathan Frakes.
Jonathan Frakes,
who
yeah.
directed a couple of, or one of the episodes, I think, of the first season. And because the suits have no pockets, those space
Well, not
suits.
only just pockets, it's not naturalistic, Star Trek, because you're talking unutterable gobbledygook a lot of the time, and you're trying to find a way to make it real, but you can't do all the pauses. There's no Marlon Brando, holding a glove, or Meryl Streep peeling an orange. There's no props. There's nothing, and there's nowhere to put your hands. And so when you start a scene, whoever's really smart grabs the folded arm position first, and then the other people go, fuck! They've got the folded arm. And Frakes, Jonathan came in and he said, hey, how's it going, everybody? It's good. He said, having trouble with your hands? And we all went, fuck, yes, we are. He said, let me give you a tip. Never start a scene with your hands on your hips, because you can't get them off. And you're like that, the whole scene. You can't, there's nowhere to, because you got nowhere else to go. But then sometimes you find yourself, your hands hanging in a way that they would never hang in real life. It's weird, when you start acting, you go, what do I do with my hands in normal? They feel like they're 8 foot across. So, yeah.
Other questions?
No, that's it. Well, thanks very much.
I wanted to know about the CGI. You mentioned that CGI helped transport you to Russia. Is it true that CGI also saved a take from Steve Buscemi?
That's absolutely right, yeah. So I'm mostly, because the characters are living at such a state of high anxiety and terror, and everyone's playing it dead straight. These people are not having fun. It's funny watching them in this uncomfortable situation, like The Office or something. But the characters are not experiencing fun. But one time only, I know that Steve guy burst out with snot, burst out laughing, because when they're moving around the coffin and they're doing all that stuff like that, and someone moved around. And then Tambor, who is just, I couldn't even look at him in the takes. I thought he was a genius. Jeffrey went, what the fuck are you doing? And Steve just like that. And because it was a big take and a lot of extras, they used the CGI to turn that into a frown, I think, and a cough or something. Yeah. But no, actually, it didn't help us, Tron. There's a big green screen, and they go, there'll be 100,000 people, and then there'll be a fly past, and then there'll be, and you have to do what you do acting a lot of the time. People go, is it hard playing a love scene? Is it, you spend your entire life pretending something is happening that isn't happening. So whether it's aliens or Quidditch, or my very first day on Harry Potter was not on the main unit. It was on a secondary unit where we were just sitting in the crowd watching a Quidditch game. And I didn't know what that was. And there's a guy, some guy, very uninterested with a tennis ball on a pole going, right, the blodgers are coming in, and then he's got the snitch, he's not gone, and then it's Hufflepuff have got it, and now it's Gryffindor, and now he's got the snitch. And I went, I don't know. I said, Alan Rickman was there, and I went, what, is that good or bad? He went, I have no fucking idea. I said, what are you going to do? Going, nothing. So most of the time you're pretending coffee is hot, or that the person you're in love with someone who's got bad breath. And so it's no different from going, there's 10,000 people marching by. You know.
Oh.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. Speaking of Harry Potter, your character is a Slytherin. Which house do you belong to?
Well, the devil has all the best tunes. I would always want to be in the Slytherin. You want to be inside the enemy camp. Online on Twitter and other things, I follow all of the disgusting right-wing nonsense because I want to know what they're saying, because it's good to know. Plus, they have the best parties. Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking of...
Now, there's a lady down here who's come twice. It was her birthday yesterday. She wants to ask a question.
Oh, yes.
I feel that she ought to be allowed to ask a question.
But speaking of the best tunes, I know a secret about you. Well, it's not a secret anymore.
Uh-oh.
But you recently
Not if he videos it and puts it online.
You recently revealed that you're a lover of show tunes.
Yes, no, one of the great regrets of my life is how much I love singing and I love show tunes. I have a spectacularly cheesy playlist on my phone called, and I'm not embarrassed either, I've called it, and I love to belt show tunes out, but I can't sing. That's the problem. And I've got a really good ear. That's why I can do accents. I've got a really good ear, so I know that I'm off. Those people who do karaoke and they don't know they're singing badly, it's great. But if you know that you're half a note off everything, it's exquisite torture. So there used to be a show tunes channel in Los Angeles on AM. And when I drove around, I would have it on. I would be belting these songs, and I'd pull up at a traffic light. Someone would look across and they'd go, that's the bad guy from the Patriot and the tough guy from the... And he's singing Liza at the top of his voice. And I'd catch their eyes and I'd go, it's an audition.
It's the age of auto-tune. There's still hope.
Yeah, that's true.
I was just, when I got back to the hotel, because I'm actually not from here, I'm just like an hour and a half east from here.
I thought you were going to tell me from another planet. I was beginning to panic.
No, that would be interesting, but my friends and I are staying for the Cherry Blossom Festival. So I went back to the hotel, and I sat and thought about it, and I was like, the unanimous scene kind of reminded me of when Jeb Bush asked everyone to please clap.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, the great thing about it is, it's great. The horrifying thing about Armando's scalpel-like eye for bursting the bubble of politicians and people who claim authority is that it applies everywhere. And so there was one woman who came out of the audience just weeping with gratitude that he'd made a film about Mugabe's Zimbabwe, because it felt like the world that she'd grown up in and the insanity she'd just left. So, yeah, it applies to her. But that whole thing about subsuming yourself, compromising your morality so much to somebody with a strong personality, all these strong leaders who are emerging all over the world and getting voted in, is sadly timeless and universal, and it's what we need to watch out for and strangle at birth. Sorry. Wait, did I say that out loud? Oh, no.
Afraid
Use
so.
my outside voice. Sorry.
Oh.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm a vocal coach. Do you want me to fix you?
No, absolutely not. I can't. It would be too torturous because I know what good. I've actually been offered musicals before. I was offered Guys and Dolls at one point, and in the West End of London, and there was a production on. It was to replace somebody, and I said to my agent, I went, I can't sing. He said, well, obviously they must have heard you sing in public, and I went. It was 5 years before I sung in front of my wife. The volume was on full. I turned the window down in the car and I pointed myself outwards. And he said, well, they can teach you. And I went, I was at drama school. I know what good voice is. I listen to good voices all day. I'll never be a good voice and I'll never be worth £75 a ticket and parking and babysitting and stuff like that. And I said, phone them up and tell them that they made a terrible mistake. They should do the research before they offer people jobs in the West End. Unless it's like the producers, they're trying to lose money and shut the show, because they've got overinvestment. So anyway, he did that. And then about 3 weeks later, my grandmother-in-law was coming to stay. She used to stay for 6 weeks over Christmas. And my wife said, could you get us tickets for Guys and Dolls? I said, well, we could buy some. She goes, but can't you phone the producers? They'll offer the job. And I went, I don't think it works like that. So I phoned my agent. I said, call the producers. Tell them I'm definitely not doing it. But just to make 100% sure, although I'm not doing it, can I have some house seats? And I got these house seats. And I went down there. And we went in, and they said, please, Mr. Isaacs, come. There was a side room, and they had oysters on ice there and champagne. And the producer came and said, look, here's the score, and here's the book and everything. And I said, no. You're completely misunderstanding. I definitely can't do it. I just wanted to just double check. He said, I know, but just take this home. So anyway, we watched the show. It was fantastic. The actors were superb. And we put the CD on in the car, and we all started singing along the way home. My mother-in-law, my grandmother-in-law, my wife, and I. And it stayed in the car, and I was singing it for weeks, the way you do. And my kids were like 6 and 3 then. After a few weeks, my 6-year-old and I knew all. I was thinking, Sky, he's got these minor key songs, but it's a good acting part. Nathan, you could talk your way through Nathan like Rex Harrison, but it's not such a great part. I'm not going to do it. Anyway, one day my wife goes to me, are you thinking of doing Guys and Dolls? And I said, why? And she goes, no, I'm just wondering, are you thinking of doing it? And I went, no. And she goes, you sure? And I said, yeah. And she went, well, stop singing those fucking songs. You're driving us all mad. So it's not salvageable, but that's very kind of you to offer.
Okay. I'm disappointed. So the accent seems to be a very popular thing to discuss since it's not yours. And the only one I can do, which is hilarious. But were you thinking of someone specific? Is it a mimic? What's the...
I was, actually. There's a brilliant, now dead actor called Brian Glover. Brian Glover was an ex-wrestler. He played the teacher in Kes. No, he didn't. Colin Whelan did. Anyway, Brian Glover is an amazing actor.
teacher, I think, didn't he?
He's one of the PE teacher. And he just was a very no-nonsense, bald-headed, stout wrestler, just kind of big barrel chest, fantastic posture, and just the Yorkshire people are renowned appropriately, I mean, in a cliched way, for being no nonsense. He was the epitome of that. So I like to have somebody in my head when I play someone. Normally a better actor than me.
We probably have time for one more question after this one.
Hi, I'm wondering, there was a lot of fast-paced dialogue and a good ensemble cast. Was there any improvisation that went along with
It's a great question,
filming?
Because it does seem like that. I mean, it feels there's a certain anarchy to what's going on. But actually, no, there's virtually none whatsoever. Armando and his 2 insane insult writers who shadow him all the time with their yellow legal pad, have honed this craft over the course of multiple series of The Thick of It in England and Veep in America, and they can create ensemble dialogue, this kind of banter, in the most brilliant way. A very good friend of mine who's a successful film writer said anybody can write dialogue with 2 people. You try and write a scene with 5 or 6 people, that's real writing. There wasn't any, there was virtually none. There was some physical improv when they had rehearsals for all the kind of farcical putting the body down and around the coffin. But just occasionally, so I like to change dialogue a lot, and I like to make a contribution if I can. But it was nerve-wracking because he had these 2 people either side of him, and their sole job was to come up with great insults. And he'd go, I don't think this scene's working. We need something about bestiality, or maybe fucking a camel or something like that. And they'd go away and they'd come back with like 100 camel fucking lines, and they were all great. And if you wanted to do something better, you really took, it took a lot of guts to walk up to this little coterie and go, I've got an idea. And the 2 of them would look daggers at you, because, and there's just a few bits made in. That bit with Steve Buscemi when he's talking and I fake him out and I go, look at your fucking face. I came up with that, brother. And Armando, though, there's so little improv that every time we did press, he went, Jason had a bit that stayed in the edit. I'm like, wow, there's that one. Like, it's a big thing that somebody else's line stayed in there. The one moment where he deliberately created that chaos was the scene in the barn, that kind of kangaroo court. And he said to all of us, it was quite a long scene. It was all written out. There were kind of testimonials and there was prosecutory evidence and all this stuff. And he said, right, I want you to go in there and the scene's got to be over in 2 minutes. I've got a bunch of cameras roaming around. I just want you to get the scene done. And numbers of people started to panic because they had their speeches they learned, and they'd be like, "But I have a 2-page speech," And he went, "I just want it over in 2 minutes." So we got in, and it was chaos, and we didn't quite know what we were doing, exactly what he wanted. And then we dragged Beria out, and I assumed it was going to be a different setup to film the shooting of him outside. And I was going to propose that I shot him because I'm playing Zhukov, but I grabbed him and moved outside, and he was dead, like that. And we all went, "Oh, fucking, the life just stopped." And then I went, well, that's got it done, isn't it? And it was, but that was all deliberately created. Everything else is very, very tightly scripted. And he would be very keen for me to tell you that as well.
So my question is, no matter how cool
Hi.
some people's jobs can be, everybody's job has something in it that's just stale and they can't stand anymore. And the other thing is, like, what about your job still brings you that, like, childish glee you got into it for? Because you said yourself, you've been doing this forever. So what still brings you that joy?
Well, look, some of the jobs are rubbish. I mean, I go into most of them hopeful because I think the script is nice and the people are nice, and just occasionally I've done things for money that I think... I did this thing that shall go nameless because I'd never work again, but I arrived on set and I just worked with the first AD, and he went, Jason. I went, mate, how are we? Put our arms around each other. He said, you read this thing, it's shit, isn't it? And I went, yeah, shut up. And I went over the makeup trailer, and it was someone I'd also just worked with somewhere before, and she went, I hope you're getting paid a lot for doing this. And so very rarely I do things just for money because, I got paid pennies for doing this thing. And sometimes people turn out to be dicks. I mean, it just is what it is. It's a workplace like any other. Some people are nice and some people aren't. When it's a really good script and it's a really good story, I mean, I don't mean to be in any way putting myself down. I think I'm a perfectly good enough actor. But the times that I've had lots of praise or awards or award nominations, I've known the day I took the script out of the brown envelope, this thing is fantastic and three-dimensional and wonderful and surprising and human. If I don't fuck it up, people are going to give me all the credit. So the work itself can be great, but only you can't, what is it? You can't sprinkle perfume on a turd or something. I don't know what it is. But anyway, you can't make a bad script into a good story. And the director has complete dictatorial power. They sit atop a pyramid like a pharaoh, and if they're nice and the atmosphere is nice. So on Harry Potter, for instance, the producer's one of the loveliest people in the world, and every director they hired was lovely. In fact, even the one who is normally very grouchy was incredibly nice because the atmosphere was just nice and open, and people just treated each other nice, and it filtered down the pyramid. And there have been in other films where the person at the top is just monstrous, and then everybody else treats each other like shit. So I don't know what else I do for a living. It's not always joyous and fun, but when they're nice people, I get to walk in other people's shoes, and I get to explore what it's like to... I still don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up, or who I'm meant to be, even. And I do love the fact that I get to explore what it's like to feel other things and be other people. Some of it's good and some of it isn't. This was one of the good ones. I've had actually a good year. I think the OA is fantastic. Star Trek turned out much better than I thought it was going to be. There's a great film that's in the Weinstein bankruptcy thing that felt is about something fabulous and important. But then there's a bunch of dire garbage as well in my past. And no matter how lovely the hotel is or how nice people are, when they say action, if you've got to do or say something stupid that no one would ever say to tell a bad story, it sucks. It sticks in your throat. So if I'm lucky enough, I'll be able to continue to do good stuff. But I have to work and fill the fridge also. So.
Well, we wish you only the brilliant ones and none of the turds.
Thank you so much.
A big round of applause for Jason Isaacs.
Thank you. Thank you for saying.